Admiral Kyung-min stood at the window of the space station and looked up at the alien ship. The massive black vessel hung in the sky above Earth like a dark cloud. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The alien ship made their best warships look like toys. The communication screen crackled to life. A face appeared that looked like something from a nightmare. 4 yellow eyes stared out from gray skin. Sharp teeth filled a mouth that was too wide. This was Warlord Thexvar of the Vorthak Empire. Humans, the alien spoke with a voice like grinding metal. You will listen. You will obey. You have 72 of your hours to surrender your world. Kyung-min felt his hands shake, but he kept his face calm. Around him, the bridge crew watched in silence. Everyone knew what this meant. The Vorthak Empire had destroyed 17 worlds in the past 10 years. They always gave the same choice. Give up or die. Your military will be dissolved, Thexvar continued. Your people will work in our mines on distant worlds. Your planet will give us the metals we need. This is not a request. This is your fate. The alien leaned forward and his 4 eyes seemed to glow with pleasure. We have watched your species. You are weak. You fight each other instead of working together. You will beg us for mercy when you see our power. The screen went dark. The bridge stayed silent for a long moment. Someone coughed. A chair creaked as an officer shifted nervously. Outside the window, the alien ship waited like a sleeping monster. Captain So Young was the first to speak. Sir, should we contact Earth Command? Kyung-min nodded slowly. Yes. Open a secure channel to President Han Sol. The call connected to the emergency bunker deep under Geneva. President Han Sol appeared on screen, her face pale but determined. Around a large table sat the most important people in human government. General Wu Jin, the head of all Earth's armies, Director So Young from Military Intelligence, Chief Science Advisor Dong Hyun. We saw the transmission, President Han Sol said. The whole world saw it. What are our options? General Wu Jin spoke first. Our fleet has 12 ships in orbit. The alien vessel is 5 times bigger than our largest battleship. Our weapons might scratch their hull, but that's all. What about ground defenses? The president asked. Planetary shields can stop some attacks, Director So Young replied, but not from something that size. If they want to destroy our cities, they can. Chief Science Advisor Dong Hyun checked his tablet. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their energy weapons, their shields, their engines, everything is better than what we have. The room fell quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. Earth had no way to fight back. The human race was about to become slaves or die trying to resist. President Han Sol looked at each face on the screen. So we surrender? Ma'am, Admiral Kyung-min said quietly. There might be another option. Everyone turned to look at him. The old admiral had fought in 3 wars and never lost a battle. If anyone had ideas, it would be him. What option? President Han Sol asked. Kyung-min was quiet for a moment. On his face was an expression that his crew had never seen before. It was not fear or sadness. It was something else. Something that made the bridge officers step back. Tell me, Mr. President, Kyung-min said. What do you know about Project Ghost Fleet? President Han Sol frowned. I've never heard of any Project Ghost Fleet. That's because it doesn't exist in any official records, Kyung-min replied. But it's real. We've been building it for 70 years. General Wu Jin leaned forward. What are you talking about? I know every ship in our fleet. No, Kyung-min said with a small smile. You know every ship in the official fleet. The one the aliens can see. The one that looks weak and small. The admiral turned to his communications officer. Lieutenant Yoonji, open a channel to Facility 0. Sir, there is no Facility 0 in our database, the young officer replied. Use emergency code Alpha 779, Kyung-min said. Lieutenant Yoonji's fingers moved over her controls. Her eyes went wide as new information appeared on her screen. Sir, I'm getting responses from hundreds of ships. How is this possible? President Han Sol stood up in the bunker. Admiral, explain this immediately. Kyung-min looked directly at the camera. 70 years ago, when we first met aliens, we learned something important. We were not alone in the universe, but we also learned we were not safe. He walked to his own control panel and entered a long code. Screens all around the bridge came alive with data. Ship names, locations, weapon systems. All things that had never existed in official records. Some of us decided that if Earth was ever threatened, we would be ready. We built ships in secret. We trained crews in secret. We developed weapons that the galaxy has never seen. The numbers on the screen were impossible. 800 ships, crews of 50,000 people, weapons that used technologies from a dozen different research projects. Where? General Wu Jin demanded. Where could you hide 800 ships? The asteroid belt, Kyungmin replied. Mining stations that weren't really mining stations. Research facilities that did more than research. Cargo ships that carried more than cargo. On Earth, President Han Sol sat down heavily. 70 years. You've been preparing for this day for 70 years. Yes, ma'am. And now that day is here. Kyungmin turned back to the window where the alien ship waited. The Vorthak thought humans would beg. They thought Earth would surrender without a fight. They had no idea what was about to happen. Lieutenant Yunji, the Admiral said calmly, send a message to all Ghost Fleet units. Execute Operation Thunderstorm. All ships are to move to attack positions immediately. Sir, that will take them 6 hours to reach Earth orbit. Perfect, Kyungmin said. That gives us time to watch the aliens get comfortable. They think they've already won. The old Admiral smiled, and it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had been waiting 70 years for his prey to walk into the trap. Let them think that for a few more hours. The news traveled faster than light itself. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations received the same impossible report. The Vorthak Empire's fleet had been destroyed by humans. The species that everyone thought was weak and primitive had won a total victory. In the crystal towers of the Quillari hegemony, Chancellor Vexara watched the battle recordings for the 5th time. Her 6 arms moved nervously as she studied the tactical data. The humans had used strategies that her military computers could not understand. How many ships did they lose? She asked her military advisor. According to our intelligence sources, 0, General Kexton replied. The humans suffered no ship losses and minimal casualties. The Vorthak fleet was completely destroyed or forced to retreat. Chancellor Vexara felt a chill run through her body. The Quillari hegemony controlled 40 star systems. They had been expanding toward human space, planning to claim Earth's solar system within the next decade. Those plans would have to change. Send a message to Earth immediately, she ordered. Tell them the Quillari hegemony wishes to discuss a peaceful trade agreement. On Earth, Ambassador Taehyung found himself the busiest person in the galaxy. His office was flooded with messages from alien governments. Species that had barely acknowledged Earth's existence now wanted immediate meetings. The Mekthari Empire offered exclusive mining rights. The Solani Federation proposed a mutual defense treaty. The mysterious Void Dancers sent a simple message: respect. Even the arrogant Crystalline Collective, who had refused to speak to humans for 50 years, requested a diplomatic conference. President Han Sol stood before the United Earth Assembly and addressed the world. Citizens of Earth, she began, today we learned that we are not alone in our strength. For 70 years, the bravest among us have worked in secret to protect our world. Today, their sacrifice has given us something we never had before: respect among the stars. The assembly hall erupted in cheers. People waved flags and wiped away tears. Families who had lost loved ones to the secret project finally understood where they had gone. Heroes who could never be acknowledged were finally getting the recognition they deserved. But not everyone in the galaxy was celebrating. In the war chambers of the hegemony's military headquarters, Admiral Korth studied star charts with growing anger. The humans had disrupted the balance of power. If they were allowed to grow stronger, they could threaten every established empire in the galaxy. We need an alliance, he told his staff officers. The humans destroyed the Vorthak fleet alone. If they had time to build more ships, they could challenge anyone. We must act now, while they are still relatively weak. Within days, secret messages passed between 3 of the galaxy's most powerful empires. The hegemony, the Iron Syndicate, and the Dominion of Suns began planning something unprecedented: a joint military operation to destroy humanity before they became too dangerous. Captain Minho returned to Earth as a hero. At the spaceport, crowds cheered as the Ghost Fleet crews disembarked from their ships. Children held signs thanking the secret defenders. Reporters competed to interview the pilots who had saved the world. Minho's elderly father, Chang Su, waited at the landing platform. The old man had tears in his eyes as he embraced his son. For 30 years, Chang Su had built ships for the Ghost Fleet, never able to tell anyone what he really did for work. I'm proud of you, son, Chang Su whispered. I'm proud of all of you. The reunion was broadcast live across Earth. Millions watched as families came together after decades of secrecy. But the celebration was interrupted by urgent news from the deep space monitoring stations. Lieutenant Su Jin was the first to detect the new threat. Her job was to watch the galaxy's major shipping routes for signs of military movement. What she saw on her screens made her blood run cold. "Admiral Kyung-min," she called through the emergency communication system. "We have a problem." "A big problem." The Admiral arrived at the monitoring station within minutes. "What are you seeing, Lieutenant?" "3 separate fleets, sir, all moving toward our space. The Hegemony is sending 200 ships. The Iron Syndicate has 300. The Dominion of Suns is bringing 400. Admiral Kyung-min studied the tactical display. 900 enemy ships all converging on Earth. Each fleet was larger than the Vorthak armada they had just defeated. "Time to arrival?" he asked. "If they maintain current speed, they'll reach our outer colonies in 6 days. Earth orbit in 10 days. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. The same cold smile he had worn before the last battle. "Lieutenant, send a message to all Ghost Fleet units. Tell them to report for duty immediately. It seems we have more guests coming to visit." On the planet below, President Han Sol received the news in an emergency meeting. The same faces that had celebrated victory just days before now looked grim and worried. "Can we win against 3 fleets?" General Wu Jin asked. "Our ships are more advanced," Director So Young replied. "But they have numbers. 900 ships against our 800. "Actually," Admiral Kyung-min said through the communication link, "we have more ships than that now." Everyone turned to look at his image on the screen. "What do you mean?" President Han Sol asked. "The Ghost Fleet was just the first phase," the Admiral explained. "For the past 10 years, we've been building a second fleet. Bigger ships, better weapons, improved everything. We call it the Storm Fleet." Chief Science Advisor Dong Hyun leaned forward. "How many ships?" 400. "Plus, we can upgrade our orbital defense platforms and activate the automated defense systems throughout the solar system." Engineer Hei Wan joined the meeting from Facility 0. At 95 years old, she was still sharp and determined. "Admiral, the new ships aren't fully tested. We've never used them in actual combat." "Then this will be a good test," Admiral Kyung-min replied. "How long to complete final preparations?" 3 days for the Storm Fleet, 2 days for the orbital platforms, 5 days total. President Han Sol looked around the room. "So we'll have 1,200 ships against their 900. Are those good odds?" "Ma'am," Admiral Kyung-min said, "they're excellent odds. But that's not the most important thing." "What is the most important thing?" "The most important thing is that the galaxy is watching. Every civilization out there wants to see what happens when Earth faces multiple enemies at once. If we win this battle, no one will ever threaten us again. If we lose..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood. This wasn't just a battle for Earth's survival. This was a battle for humanity's place in the galaxy. Ambassador Tae-hyung stood on the observation deck of the orbital station and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 900 enemy ships were coming to destroy his homeworld. But for the first time in human history, Earth was ready for them. Young student Jin Woo, who had recorded the first battle, prepared his camera for the second one. This time, he would be ready from the beginning. The world would see how humans defended their home. Captain Min Ho said goodbye to his family once more. His children, Bo Ram and Sung Min, now knew the truth about their father's work. They were proud of him, but they were also scared. "Will you come back?" Little Bo Ram asked. "Yes," Min Ho promised. "I'll always come back home." But as he walked toward his ship, Min Ho wondered if that was a promise he could keep. The coming battle would be bigger than anything humanity had ever faced. The enemy fleets were 5 days away. In 5 days, the galaxy would learn whether humans truly belonged among the stars, or whether they would be destroyed for daring to reach too high. The countdown to humanity's greatest test had begun. The 72 hours were up. Warlord Thexavar sat on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and smiled with all 4 of his eyes. Below him, the blue planet Earth waited helplessly. The humans had not even tried to contact him. They knew they were beaten. "Begin the bombardment," he ordered his weapons officer. "Target their largest cities first. Let them see what happens to those who do not obey the Vorthak Empire." The massive ship's main guns powered up. Energy that could crack a moon gathered in the weapon systems. The first plasma bolts lanced down toward Earth's surface. bright enough to light up the space around them. The bolts never reached their targets. They struck something invisible in space and exploded harmlessly. The sky around Earth suddenly filled with brilliant flashes of light as hundreds of hidden shields activated. But that was not the most shocking thing. The most shocking thing was what appeared next. One moment, space around the Vorthak fleet was empty except for a few primitive human ships. The next moment, 800 human battleships materialized out of nothing. They appeared all at once in perfect formation, surrounding the alien vessels like hunters surrounding prey. "What is this?" Thexvar roared, jumping from his command chair. "Where did they come from?" His sensor officer's hands shook as he checked his instruments. "Sir, they were completely invisible. Our scanners showed nothing. Now I'm reading 800 human vessels, all armed and powered for combat." Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the Soul's Fury and watched the alien ship through his view screen. After 70 years of preparation, the moment had finally arrived. Through the quantum link, he felt the presence of all the other Ghost Fleet ships. They moved together like parts of one mind. Soul, target the enemy flagship's weapon systems. Prepare for coordinated strike. Target acquired, Captain. All fleet units report ready for engagement. Admiral Kyungmin's voice came through the communication system. Broadcast to every ship in the fleet and every person on Earth. "Citizens of Earth, this is Admiral Kyungmin. For 70 years we have prepared for this day. The enemy expected us to beg for mercy. Instead, let us show them why we have survived every threat our world has ever faced." The first volley came from all 800 ships at once. Thousands of railgun slugs, moving at incredible speeds, struck the Vorthak vessels from every direction. The aliens' shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against solid metal, traveling at nearly the speed of light. Thexvar watched in horror as his escort ships began to explode. The human weapons punched through their armor like it was paper. "Return fire. All ships, return fire immediately." The Vorthak ships opened up with their plasma cannons. Beams of superheated energy lanced out toward the human fleet. But the human ships were no longer where the beams were aimed. They moved like dancers, flowing around the alien weapons with impossible grace. Lieutenant Ye Jin, piloting a fighter squadron from the carrier New Seoul, dove through the wreckage of a Vorthak destroyer. Her target was the flagship's communication array. If she could destroy it, the enemy fleet would lose coordination. "Tiger Squadron, follow my lead," she called to her pilots. "Remember your training. Fast and precise." The small human fighters moved through the battle like arrows shot from a bow. They were too small and too fast for the big alien guns to track. Yejin's fighter screamed past the flagship's hull, firing its weapons at the communication towers. Metal and sparks flew as the alien equipment was destroyed. On Earth, student Jinwoo stood on the roof of his dormitory and watched the battle above. He held up his phone and recorded everything. The sight was impossible to believe. Human ships that moved like living things, weapons that fired faster than the eye could follow, explosions that lit up the night sky like fireworks. "Are you seeing this?" he called to his friends. "We're winning. We're actually winning." Captain Minho guided his ship through a formation of enemy cruisers. The Soul's Fury spun and rolled, avoiding enemy fire while striking back with deadly accuracy. Through the quantum link, he coordinated with dozens of other ships, creating attack patterns that no single pilot could have planned. "Soul, status on enemy flagship," he called to his AI. "Shields down to 40%, Captain. Main weapons are damaged, but still functional. I recommend concentrated fire on their reactor housing." "Agreed." "Signal the fleet. All available ships target the flagship's power core." The quantum communication system sent the order instantly. Within seconds, 200 human ships turned their weapons on the Vorthak flagship. The concentrated firepower was devastating. Explosions rippled along the massive alien vessel's hull. Warlord Thexvar felt his ship shake around him. "Damage report. Shields failing. Main reactor approaching critical levels. Sir, we're taking too much damage. We need to retreat." "No." Thexvar slammed his fist down. "We are the Vorthak Empire. We do not retreat from primitive mammals." But even as he spoke, more of his ships were dying. The humans fought unlike any enemy he had ever faced. They used the debris from destroyed ships as cover. They coordinated their movements in ways that seemed impossible. They struck from angles that his tactical computer said were impossible to achieve. Lieutenant Yunji, commanding the destroyer Inchin's Pride, led a group of ships against the enemy's heavy cruisers. Her grandmother had fought in Earth's old wars, before humans reached the stars. She had told Yunji stories about soldiers who won battles against impossible odds. Remember, Yunji told her crew, they're bigger than us, but we're smarter. They have more firepower, but we have better tactics. Show them what humans can do when we fight together. The Inchin's pride in her squadron moved in a pattern called the Dancing Spear. They approached the enemy ships in a spread formation, then converged at the last second to concentrate their fire on a single target. The alien cruiser's shields collapsed under the focused assault. On the Vorthak flagship, the bridge was filled with smoke and sparks. Half the control systems were down. Bodies of dead crew members lay scattered around damaged equipment. "Sir," the communications officer called out weakly, "the rest of the fleet is requesting permission to retreat. We've lost 60% of our ships." Thexvar looked at the tactical display. It was true. His mighty armada was being destroyed by ships that were supposed to be primitive and weak. How had the humans hidden such a fleet? How had they developed such advanced technology? "Sir," the sensor officer reported, "the human ships are not pursuing our retreating vessels. They're letting them go." This was something Thexvar had never heard of before. In every battle he had fought, the winner destroyed all enemy ships. That was how wars were won. But the humans were allowing defeated enemies to escape. Admiral Kyung-min opened a communication channel to the Vorthak flagship. His face appeared on Thexvar's main screen, calm and serious. "Warlord Thexvar," the human admiral said, "your fleet is defeated. I offer you the same choice you gave us. Surrender and leave our space or be destroyed." Thexvar stared at the human face. This was not how conquests were supposed to work. The strong took from the weak. The weak begged for mercy. But these humans had proven they were not weak. How? Thexvar asked. How did you hide such a fleet? How did you build ships that can defeat the Vorthak Empire? We learned from our history, Admiral Kyung-min replied. We learned that sometimes the best way to keep peace is to be ready for war. We learned that the only way to protect what we love is to be strong enough to defend it. The battle was over. In 6 hours, the Vorthak Empire's mighty armada had been destroyed or driven away. Not a single human city had been touched. Earth was safe, but this was only the beginning. The news of humanity's victory would spread across the galaxy. Other empires would learn that Earth was not as helpless as they thought, and some of them would decide that humans were now too dangerous to be allowed to live. The 3 enemy fleets arrived at the edge of human space exactly when predicted. 900 warships from 3 different empires, all united in their desire to destroy humanity, before it grew too powerful. They expected to find Earth defended by the same ghost fleet that had defeated the Vorthak. Instead, they found something impossible. Admiral Korth of the Hegemony Fleet stared at his sensors in disbelief. How many human ships are you reading? 1,200, sir, his sensor officer replied with a shaking voice. And they're not the same ships from the previous battle. These are bigger, more advanced. Captain Sujin stood on the bridge of her new ship, the Thunderstorm. She was one of the Storm Fleet commanders, given charge of one of the new super destroyers that had been built in secret over the past decade. Around her, crews that had trained for years prepared for the biggest battle in human history. All stations report ready, she announced to Admiral Kyung-min through the Quantum Communication Network. Storm Fleet is prepared for combat operations. The Storm Fleet ships were everything the Ghost Fleet had been and more. Each one was twice the size of the original vessels, but 3 times as powerful. Their weapons could punch through any known armor. Their shields could stop the heaviest enemy fire. Most importantly, their AI systems had learned from the previous battle and were now even smarter. Engineer Haewon watched the battle preparations from her command center. At 95, she was too old to fight, but she could still coordinate the defense systems. Around Earth, hundreds of orbital platforms powered up their weapons. Hidden bases throughout the solar system activated automated defense networks. Grandmother, young technician Yujin said to her, the enemy fleets are moving into attack formation. Haewon smiled. Yujin was her great-granddaughter, the newest member of a family that had served the defense project for 3 generations. Good, let them come close. The closer they get, the harder they'll fall. The battle began not with weapons, but with words. Admiral Korth broadcast a message to Earth, offering humanity one last chance to surrender. People of Earth, his voice echoed across all frequencies. You face the combined might of 3 empires. You cannot win. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Admiral Kyung-min's response was broadcast to the entire galaxy. Every civilization with radio technology heard his words. We didn't ask for this war. We wanted peace with all our neighbors. But if you bring violence to our home, we will meet it with violence. If you come seeking conquest, you will find only defeat. The first shots came from the Iron Syndicate fleet. Hundreds of plasma beams lanced toward the human formations. But the humans were no longer where the beams were aimed. The entire fleet had moved as one, flowing around the enemy fire like water around rocks. Lieutenant Ye Jin, now promoted to squadron commander, led her fighters through the chaos of the opening attack. Her target was the Syndicate flagship's communication array. If she could destroy it, 1/3 of the enemy fleet would lose coordination. "Phoenix Squadron, follow my lead," she called to her pilots. "Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every world that wants to be free." The human fighters moved through space like schools of fish, impossible to track or target. They struck the enemy ships from a dozen different angles, destroying weapons and shield generators with surgical precision. Captain Minho commanded a group of Stormfleet destroyers against the hegemony's heavy cruisers. His ships moved in formation patterns that no military academy had ever taught, coordinated by quantum-linked AI systems that thought faster than any organic mind. "Sol, target the lead cruiser's reactor core," he ordered his ship's AI. "Target acquired, Captain. Firing solution calculated. All squadron ships are synchronized for coordinated strike." The human destroyers fired as one. Dozens of railgun slugs struck the enemy cruiser at the exact same moment, overwhelming its shields and punching through its armor. The alien ship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the space around it. On Earth, billions of people watched the battle through live broadcasts. Student Jin Woo had set up cameras throughout the solar system, giving the world a clear view of the fighting. Children cheered as human ships danced through enemy formations. Adults wept as they realized their species was winning against impossible odds. The Dominion of Suns brought 400 ships to the battle, more than any other empire. Their admiral, Kestaran, was confident that numbers would win the day. He was wrong. Commander Yunji led a group of Ghost Fleet veterans against the Dominion ships. These were the original heroes who had defeated the Vorthak. They knew their ships better than anyone and fought with the experience of previous victory. "Remember," she told her captains, "they're thinking like empires. We're thinking like defenders. They want to conquer. We want to protect. That makes us stronger." The Ghost Fleet and Storm Fleet worked together like parts of a single organism. When enemy ships tried to surround one group, the other group attacked from behind. When aliens concentrated their fire on the human formations, automated defense platforms struck them from unexpected angles. Engineer Donghyun coordinated the orbital defenses from Luna Base. The massive particle beam arrays that ringed Earth's moon fired with the power of small stars, reaching out across millions of kilometers to strike enemy ships with devastating accuracy. "Target the hegemony command vessel," he ordered his weapons officers. "Full power, all arrays." The combined firepower of 6 orbital platforms struck Admiral Korth's flagship simultaneously. The alien ship's shields collapsed instantly. Its hull cracked and split. Explosions rippled along its length as critical systems failed. "Sir," Korth's tactical officer called out through the smoke and sparks, "we're taking too much damage. All our escort ships are destroyed. We need to retreat." Admiral Korth looked at his tactical display. It was true. His mighty fleet was being torn apart by human weapons. Ships that had conquered a dozen worlds were exploding like toys. The humans fought with a coordination and intelligence that seemed impossible. But the most shocking thing was what happened next. Captain Sujin, commanding the destroyer Busan's Thunder, opened a communication channel to the retreating hegemony ships. Instead of demanding their surrender, she offered them something unprecedented. "Alien vessels," she broadcast, "you are defeated. Leave our space now, and you will not be pursued. We don't want to destroy you. We want you to go home and remember what you learned here." This was something Admiral Korth had never heard of in all his years of military service. The winners were letting the losers escape. It made no sense from a tactical perspective, but it made perfect sense from a human perspective. The 3 enemy fleets that had come to destroy humanity limped away from Earth, broken and humbled. Out of 900 ships, fewer than 200 survived. They would carry the news back to their empires. Humanity was not just strong, it was merciful. Ambassador Taehyung received the first diplomatic message just hours after the battle ended. It came from the Quillari hegemony. The Quillari people wish to formally apologize for any misunderstanding. We request immediate peace negotiations. Similar messages poured in from across the galaxy. Empires that had planned to attack Earth now begged for friendship. Species that had ignored humanity now offered trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. But the most important message came from a group no one expected, the Vorthak refugees. Survivors of the first battle had found shelter on a remote world, where they had time to think about what had happened. People of Earth, their leader transmitted, "You defeated us in battle, but you did not destroy us. You showed us mercy when we deserved none. Some of us would like to return not as conquerors, but as friends. We want to learn from you." 5 years after the Great Battle, Earth had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a center of cooperation instead of conquest. The human city of New Geneva hosted the Galactic Peace Council, where former enemies worked together to explore unknown regions of space. Admiral Kyung-min, now retired, taught military strategy at the Academy of Galactic Defense. His students came from dozens of worlds, all eager to learn the principles that had turned defeat into victory. The secret, he told them, is not in your weapons or your ships. It's in understanding why you fight. We didn't fight to conquer. We fought to protect. We didn't fight to destroy others. We fought to preserve what we loved. Captain Minho had returned to his family, but not to retirement. He now commanded exploration vessels that carried the human flag to distant galaxies. His children, Boram and Sungmin, served as junior officers on his ship. Continuing the family tradition of service, engineer Hae-won, now 100 years old, put the finishing touches on humanity's latest project, peaceful exploration vessels designed not for war but for discovery. The same skills that had built the Ghost Fleet now reached toward the stars with messages of friendship and cooperation. Student Jin Woo, whose recordings of the battles had inspired a generation, now worked as a documentary filmmaker, telling the stories of the heroes who had saved humanity. His most popular film was called The Day the Sky Filled with Battleships. But perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy thought about war itself. For thousands of years, stronger civilizations had conquered weaker ones. Engineer Hae-won remembered the day everything changed. She was 25 years old then, fresh out of university with dreams of building starships. That was 70 years ago. When the first alien ship arrived at Earth, the aliens called themselves the Zalari. They came in peace, they said. They wanted to trade and share knowledge. The whole world celebrated. Humanity was not alone in the universe. But Hae-won's grandfather, General Chang-su, saw something else in that first contact. "They're scared," he told young Hae-won as they watched the news together. "Did you see how their ship moved? How their weapons were always ready? They're not just exploring. They're running from something." Within a week, General Chang-su's fears proved right. The Zalari ship left Earth in a hurry. Before they went, their captain sent a secret message to Earth's military leaders. The galaxy was full of empires that conquered worlds. The Vorthak Empire was the worst of them all. Earth needed to prepare for war. Most world leaders ignored the warning. They wanted to focus on the peaceful parts of first contact. But General Chang-su and a few others started a secret project. They called it Ghost Fleet. Hae-won spent her whole life working on the project. She never married, never had children. The ships were her children. Every bolt, every wire, every piece of armor was something she helped design. The secret was harder to keep than people thought. They needed materials. They needed workers. They needed places to build ships without anyone noticing. The answer came from the asteroid belt. Captain Minho had been born on one of those asteroid stations. His father worked the mines while his mother ran the communication systems. Minho grew up thinking it was normal for mining stations to have military-grade weapons and shields. "Dad, why do we need such big guns on a mining platform?" young Minho had asked when he was 12. "Pirates," his father lied smoothly. "The belt is dangerous. We need to protect ourselves." It wasn't until Minho joined the Ghost Fleet at age 20 that he learned the truth. The mining stations were factories. The miners were shipbuilders. The cargo ships that carried metal ore also carried weapons and armor plating to secret construction sites. Scientist Ginny joined the project 15 years ago. Her job was to solve the biggest problem the Ghost Fleet faced: how to coordinate 800 ships in battle without the enemy detecting their communications. Regular radio signals could be jammed or traced. Laser communications were fast but could be blocked. Genei's solution came from quantum physics. Particles that were quantum-linked would react to each other instantly, no matter how far apart they were. It's like having 800 brains that share the same thoughts, she explained to the project leaders. Every ship will know what every other ship is doing at the exact same moment. The quantum communication system took 5 years to build and test. Each ship had a quantum processor linked to all the others. In battle, the fleet would move like one giant organism instead of hundreds of separate ships. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of his ship, the Soul's Fury. Around him, his crew of 50 prepared for the mission they had trained for their entire careers. Most of them had never seen Earth except in pictures. They were born in space, raised in space, trained in space. Earth was something they protected, not something they lived on. Status report, Minho called out. Stealth systems online, reported Lieutenant Ye-jin. Were invisible to their sensors. Weapons charged and ready, said Weapons Officer Jun Seo. Railguns loaded with tungsten penetrators. Quantum link established with all fleet units, added Communications Officer Yun-ji. We're connected to the network, Minho nodded. Through the quantum link, he could sense the other ships around him. Not see them. They were all cloaked and invisible. But he could feel them like a person feels their own arms and legs. 800 ships moving through space like ghosts. The Soul's Fury was typical of Ghost Fleet design. It was half the size of a regular human battleship, but twice as fast. Instead of thick armor, it used adaptive shielding that could change to stop different types of weapons. Instead of big, slow guns, it had dozens of small, fast railguns that fired metal slugs at incredible speeds. Most importantly, every Ghost Fleet ship had something no other vessel in the galaxy possessed: a true artificial intelligence. Not just a computer that followed orders, but a thinking machine that could learn and adapt. Hello, Captain, the ship's AI said in a calm female voice. I am ready for combat operations. Good morning, Soul, Minho replied. The AI had chosen the name Soul for itself, after the ship's designation. What's our mission status? All systems optimal. Enemy vessel remains in high orbit above Earth. I detect no awareness of our presence. Probability of mission success 87%. Minho smiled. Soul was careful with predictions. If she said 87%, the real chances were probably higher. Back on Earth, Admiral Kyung-min watched the countdown timer. 4 hours until the Ghost Fleet reached attack positions. 4 hours until the galaxy learned that humans were not as helpless as they seemed. The Vorthak ship hadn't moved since delivering its ultimatum. It just hung there in space, confident and waiting. On the planet below, news channels showed crowds of people looking up at the sky. Some prayed, some cried, some just stood and waited for the end. They had no idea that help was coming. Engineer Hae-won sat in the command center of Facility Zero, the main construction site hidden deep in the asteroid belt. Around her, holographic displays showed the position of every Ghost Fleet ship. After 70 years of work, her children were finally going to war. They're beautiful, said Chief Engineer Dong-hyun, watching the displays with her. I wish the world could see them. They will soon, Hae-won replied. In 4 hours, everyone in the galaxy will see what humans can really build. She thought about all the people who had worked on the project over the decades. Scientists who spent their lives developing new technologies, workers who built ships in secret facilities, families who never knew where their loved ones really went each day. Captain Minho's wife, Soo-jin, thought he worked on cargo ships. His children, Bo-ram and Sung-min, thought their father hauled supplies between Earth and Mars. They had no idea he commanded one of the most advanced warships ever built. That would change today. After the battle, there would be no more secrets. The Ghost Fleet would be revealed to the world. Families would finally learn the truth about what their relatives had been doing all these years. Captain Minho, came Soul's voice over the communication system. We are approaching the final waypoint. Time to battle positions, 1 hour. Understood, Soul. Signal the fleet. All ships prepare for combat operations. Through the quantum link, the message spread instantly to 800 ships. 800 captains received their orders. 800 crews made final preparations for battle. The Vorthak Empire had conquered 17 worlds. They had never lost a major battle. They thought humans were weak and primitive. In 1 hour, they were going to learn how wrong they were.